You might have seen some of our coverage on the new Hilux, including all the specs and design details, but now I'm going to tell you what it's like to drive. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by Budget Direct. Jump forward about a month and a half from that last clip and I can tell you how the Toyota Hilux drives. Now, I know this is a little bit unorthodox, but it's because Toyota took away our phones, camera gear, and didn't allow us to film inside the cars while we were driving. So I thought, instead of trying to piece together a video like that, I'd go away, collect my thoughts, read over my notes, and give you a more pointed opinion on the new 2026 Toyota Hilux and how it compares to key rivals like the Ford Ranger, Kia Tasman, Isuzu D-Max, Mitsubishi Triton, and BYD Shark 6 from a more comfortable position. So let's go over these things, but first we'll start with some of the key specs, including the things that have stayed the same and the things that are new for the new Hilux, which goes on sale on the 9th of December in Australia, priced from $33,990. Now, what's the same? So the IMV ladder frame chassis underneath carries over. There are some changes, but they are minimal. Identical is the powertrain. A 2.8-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder is the only engine option, displacing the old 2.7 and 2.4 at the bottom of the range. You can get the full price, specs, and details in our previous video, but essentially prices are up and down across the board depending on what you look at, but all the high-spec cars are a bit more expensive. We still maintain a 6-speed automatic or 6-speed manual transmission option, and there's only part-time 4-wheel drives. But all of this sameness is because Toyota doesn't want to sacrifice the 51% return rate of Hilux customers. That said, there are some changes under the skin as well as to the skin, which I happen to think look quite good. That new Cyber Sumo look is sharp and crisp, and although it has the same cabin cell in the center, I do think it is quite a successful facelift. Underneath the metalwork, you'll get more spot welds, liquid-filled engine mounts, new suspension towers that are reinforced to increase NVH suppression and also comfort, as well as strengthened crash structure to make sure this car gets a 5-star ANCAP crash rating when it is evaluated by the independent testing body. Big news is that rear disc brakes are now standard on SR5 grades and above, which we love to see, but the suspension is otherwise pretty much the same. Coil springs up front with a leaf spring live rear axle at the back, and no trick dampers like we're starting to see in some dual cabs, such as the frequency selective items in the Kia Tasman. Basically, Toyota didn't want to bugger this one up. And one of the best examples of that was when talking to the engineers who worked on this car about the traction control system. Now, it was already class leading in the 8th gen Hilux, but the 9th gen got new hardware, and the main development goal was just to make it as good as the car it replaced. Now, I'm happy to say it's gone above and beyond and works effectively and more quietly than before, but it's not a wholesale redevelopment, and it still doesn't work on the front axle when you engage the rear differential lock. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how the Hilux is to drive. We didn't have a huge amount of time, but the first sample did take us on a nice variance of terrain from tarmac, high-speed dirt roads, and some technical off-roading. One of the first things you notice is the different seating position and more comfortable seats, which immediately make the Hilux feel a little bit better. But the biggest difference in the way this car feels as you drive out of a parking space is the electronic power-assisted steering, which is very welcome in a ute that typically had very heavy, very cumbersome steering in the previous generation form. It makes the car feel so much more alert, light, and easy to maneuver at low speeds, and yet firms up at high speeds to give you the confidence that you want in a heavy vehicle. So we really like to see that. The suspension is also improved. On first taste, it feels about 20 to 25% more compliant than the car it replaces. It's got a nice softness to the top of the travel, rounds out bumps really well, but without sacrificing mid-stroke support. And that is crucial because this Hilux is all about keeping the Hilux faithful happy. It needs to still be able to carry a ton in the tray without breaking a sweat and tow 3.5 tons of caravan behind it if you want to. And although we didn't get to test that, we reckon this car will be pretty adept when it comes to carrying heavy loads, unlike the Mitsubishi Triton, which really falls over with its new softer rear suspension. When it comes to off-roading, we already talked about the traction control system, which feels really, really good. It's so sophisticated and so quiet now. Toyota has also changed the hill descent control in the Hilux, and it now runs at much slower speeds, more like 3 to 4 k's an hour rather than 6 to 7 k's an hour in the previous model, and that makes this car feel a bit more confident when you're descending steep obstacles, and it is genuinely nice to use. That said, you can't adjust the speed, and there's no off-road cruise control as we're starting to see in many other utes at this point. So I think while the Hilux still remains extremely capable off-road with great articulation and really good traction control, other competitors are beginning to catch up. The big benefit to this car though is that all of the controls for the off-road systems are physical. You've got physical drive mode control, physical 4 high, 4 low, and physical diff lock switches, unlike some rivals. We're looking at BYD Shark 6 and the Ford Ranger. But of course the Hilux is still only part-time 4-wheel drive, so you need to drive it in rear-wheel drive on paved surfaces. Again, we'd really like to see some of those things improved with the new generation, but they just haven't been. The same is true of the transmission. More refined and with less of that torque converter flair, it's still a 6-speed automatic unit, and when so many other cars are moving to 8 and even 10 speeds, and Toyota has shown it can match this engine up to an 8-speed automatic in the Prado, I just don't understand why that wasn't done for the new Hilux. Toyota told us it's due to quality and durability reasons that they stuck with the tried and tested 6-speed automatic, but surely if the Prado has the 8-speed and can tow 3.5 tons, then why not the Hilux? Similarly, carrying on with the 150 kilowatt, 500 Newton meter tune of the 2.8 litre diesel, rather than moving wholesale to the 165 550 that we used to see in the wide-body GR Sport, seems a bit of a mystery to me. Speaking of, there are no wide-body variants in the range. They're all the same width, all have the same track width. So don't quite understand that. Again, perhaps it's leaving room for a future GR Sport Halo model to tackle the Ford Ranger Raptor. At least that's what we've got our fingers crossed for, because at the moment the Rugged X doesn't really move the game on that much from the Rogue and the SR5. Safety should also be improved with Toyota's full suite of safety sense technologies with much better lane trace assist than the previous car, and upgrades to things like the AEB, adaptive cruise control, and of course the crash structure, along with some driver monitoring tech, which is likely because this car needs to get a 5-star ANCAP safety rating if it's to succeed in sales to large fleets, which are the Hilux's bread and butter here in Australia. Time to sum up the Hilux first drive then from my comfortable chair, now that I've had time to digest this car a little bit more. It feels really a lot like a deep facelift. There are huge lifts in interior technology, and the exterior presentation is, I think, really good. Other opinions may differ, but at least it is quite differentiated from the car it replaces. But as I've touched on in this video, there are some areas where it just feels like Toyota has dropped the ball, like it's gone for a classic reskin of a car that already existed, like it's done time and again for this segment of vehicle and is so common in Japanese manufacturers, where newcomers from China are really starting to reinvent the wheel. So the Hilux then will absolutely appeal to the faithful. Toyota hasn't thrown the baby out with the bathwater. It hits all of those points of off-road capability, it feels sturdy, and it has all the proven gear underneath the bonnet. But is it time that Toyota really started to change how it approaches things? Newcomers from China are really showing us that that can resonate with a new segment of ute buyers, as well as rusted-on ute buyers too. What do you think of the new Hilux? From first drive, I think it's done enough to keep the Hilux faithful on side, but perhaps not anymore to drive new sales. And I think quickly this car is going to feel outdated. Perhaps Toyota's biding their time and working away carefully on a new generation model based on TNGA platform with electrification that will come out in less time than another 10 years, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, this is the Hilux we've got. The pricing is a bit more expensive, but not egregious, and I think the updates are worthwhile, if not in any way game-changing. But leave your thoughts down below. Tell us what you think of the new Hilux, what you think of the looks, the drive, the specs. Leave us comments and hit subscribe to Chasing Cars if you haven't done so already. And as always, thank you very much for watching.